Hello everyone, this is a video response. It's kind of a thread that was started by Tim Allen. Tim Allen, being a big Beatles fan, he started a video where he talked about Beatles oddities, variations, certain songs that are different in this way or that way. And he asked us if we'd come along and make the video in response, or just simply write in his comments some examples of songs he may have forgotten that are a little different. Well, what I did was, today I had to accompany my girlfriend. She had somewhere to go, and while she was busy doing what she was doing, I was sitting in the car with a notepad and pen, and I was coming up with whatever I could think off the top of my head. A lot of these are going to be things that Tim has already covered in his video. I just figured I'd repeat some of them here for posterity on my channel, and so I came up with some new ones. So, hey, feel free to comment on things I may have missed. And you know, these days we're so used to hearing so many different mixes of Beatles albums and different songs. There's tons of them here that I'm sure I forgot. A lot of the ones I'm going to list here are not just, I don't know, different mixes. I mean, even the mono and stereo mixes alone, there's millions of them. Just off the top of my head, things that I didn't list but that just came to mind right now. Stuff like the Beatles version of the song Money. You know, it's a much harder, heavier sound on the stereo version as opposed to the mono mix. But as I say, you get into mixes and you can go all over the place with that. So, I Feel Fine and She's a Woman, which I happen to love these versions. I mean, I grew up with these, and for many years as a kid I tried to get rid of the reverb. In the US, the single has reverb on it, you know, that echoey sound. I think it makes it a much tougher record. Both songs, She's a Woman and I Feel Fine. You know, for years as a young collector, I couldn't wait to get a hold of the original, cleaner British originals. But now I find I like hearing a little tougher edge. But anyway, that's obviously one of the big differences. Then you have, in the US, again, on this particular soundtrack album, you had the James Bond theme at the beginning of the song Help, mostly because this was a soundtrack LP, but they also repeated that when they did the Red Album, 62 to 66. And in America, hearing that little bit of music from the film, the James Bond so-called intro, that kind of is the way we're used to hearing it here for so many years. But there's also another version of Help. You know, well, two versions, and here's where we go to the stereo and mono. If you had the mono version, I'll just hold up this version here from the US single. There's, you know, a different version of Help, where there's one version where John sings "But Now These Days Are Gone," or which is the one that we really are most familiar with, and it's the most commonly heard version. But on the original single, there's a different vocal entirely where John sings "And Now These Days Are Gone," and that's a difference. But let's just go to introducing the Beatles for a minute. Now, this is the only place that I know offhand that you can hear this, but I'm going to play a little snippet of it. The song "I Saw Her Standing There" always famously has a 1, 2, 3, 4 countdown beginning to it, and this particular version here, on introducing the Beatles, has the 1, 2, 3 edited off, and here it is. Just a little snippet, a little taste of it. The heck is that all about? But anyway, that's the only place I know you can hear that one. Okay, Tim showed this in his video. This is essential for collectors to have. It's the German Horzu label, stereo copy of Magical Mystery Tour. And there's a lot of differences on here. I believe that Tim said, if I'm not mistaken, or someone said, that "Baby You're a Rich Man" off this album, it's the only way you hear a non-distorted piano. But also, along those lines, talking about this album, besides the fact that the whole thing sounds damn good, just in general, I also think this is the place where you have "I Am the Walrus" at the beginning. The intro goes on several more beats or bars. Again, I'm not musically inclined, don't really know what the term is. And while I'm on the subject of "I Am the Walrus," another thing that I've always liked, when John sings "I'm Crying," and then he goes into the line "Yellow matter custard, dripping from a dead dog's eye." There's some versions that have an extra couple of beats between that. It's a little extended in between that. I've always thought the officially released version as we know it of "I Am the Walrus" always sounds like it skips a little bit. You know, it kind of goes, that yellow matter custard, it goes right into that. It doesn't have a little moment in there where there's like an extra beat. And I've always liked that. I'm going by my list here for a few of these. We have "Love Me Do," of course, when you hear the difference between the Andy White version and the single version that you can find it on. It used to be the Past Masters album. I don't know if it's still called Past Masters or if it's Beatles in mono. But the Ringo version is completely different from the Andy White take. We have "Please Please Me." I believe it's the mono version that's correct, but if you hear the stereo version of that, you hear John make a little mistake, and he kind of laughs a little bit when it seems like they're singing "Why No, I Never Even Try, Girl," and there's a little laugh before they come on a little bit. That's on the stereo version where you hear that. Let's go to "I'll Cry Instead," which of course Tim spoke about. You know, for a long time, I don't know if it's still the case, but the only way you could get this thing is on the U.S. single and the U.S. album of "I'll Cry Instead." And that's the fact that there's an extra verse. John sings the opening line there, the opening introduction song, "I've got every reason on earth to be mad," etc., etc. It's incomprehensible to me that in the original UK version they only do it once, but on other versions John repeated it on the US album, where he sings the opening line twice. Now a lot of people think it's just the first line re-edited in a second time for the second go round, but if you listen to it carefully, you can even tell in the music, besides the vocal being a little different by John, and the music is different slightly. You know, I pick up on those kind of things. So it's just amazing to me why that's the only place that you had that difference, and why it's edited in the original UK presentation on the original British album. You know, this is a rarity where you get more here, you know, than you would originally. Okay, Tim talked about this German version here, Beatles' greatest album, where there's a hi-hat introduction, you know, a 5-beat before they "Close Your Eyes and I'll Kiss You" line in "All My Loving." And I think I've heard that show up in other places since then, that hi-hat intro. But this was the first that a lot of us ever knew about it. Now, "Thank You Girl," I forgot to pull the Beatles' second album. The Beatles' second album, and I love it. There's an extra harmonica in the middle of it that echoes the lines, you know, "Way That You Do," with a harmonica when they repeat "Way That You Do." And then "That's the Kind of Love That Seems Too Good to Be True." And then they do another harmonica echo to echo the line again. I love it. And to this day, every time I hear the original, the way it was really released initially, the original UK single, there's something missing in there. It seems like somebody turned the channel off or something when there's no harmonica echoing those phrases. And also at the end, you know, the way the US album has the ending. I'm going to play a little of that right here. Okay, first what we'll do is we'll hear the original British ending, which, I'm sorry guys, I think is inferior. I grew up on the US version, and it just sounds a lot better. With a harmonica flourish. Can't go wrong there. Okay, continuing from my list here. Penny Lane, of course. Penny Lane, we had the trumpet ending that used to only appear on the promotional 45. You had to find a promotional single for it, but you know, later on you got it on other releases, including the Beatles rarities in the States. I'm Looking Through You. Of course, we have one version, I guess the mono version. I could be wrong about these things, it's been a long time. Mono version is regularly, just the song just starts, and then you have the stereo version with a false start, a couple of false starts, which is interesting that they issued it both ways. I prefer the false start beginning myself. I talked a little earlier about the song I Feel Fine. There's also a version of I Feel Fine that actually has a little mumbling or whispering sounds at the beginning of it before you get the guitar feedback. And the only place I remember seeing that was on an old, I think it was an import copy of the Beatles 62 to 66 Red album from another country. It was the only place that I remember hearing that. Yellow Submarine, the song Yellow Submarine. The most common version seems to have somebody falling asleep when they're trying to sing along with the chorus. So there's a part in there when they say, as we live a life of ease, every one of us has all he needs, has all he needs. You know, they do that part a little bit, but there's some versions where the first line, as we live a life of ease, somebody goes, a life of ease. Life of ease echoing and repeating is missing on most of the versions of Yellow Submarine. I like it much better with every line being repeated. I think the last song that I'm going to save for last is something I don't think many people have picked up on, and I'm going to play a little snippet of it. You still might not pick up on it. It's very subtle. There are a couple of versions of the song When I Get Home. That was on the UK A Hard Day's Night. And if you listen to the mono version of the Beatles' Something New album, the way he sings the line, John that is, the line, till I walk out that door, is different. It's more stretched. I'm going to play the two versions. I'm going to see if you can tell the difference. Let's go for it.